and welcome to Star Wars Obsessed. I'm Richard, and this is Jeff Mohrlang.
Hi, everybody.
On a previous video, we recorded a room tour of his amazing collection. Now, we're going to sit down and have a little chat. I'll ask him a few questions, a little bit about his interest in Star Wars and collecting in general. All right, so when you saw Star Wars in 1977, what did it do for you?
Well, I was not born yet.
What? Oh!
Soon. I was born soon after.
All joking aside, what is the first Star Wars movie you saw?
Definitely The Return of the Jedi.
And how old were you when you saw Return of the Jedi?
5.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I was born in 78.
Okay, so you saw Return of the Jedi, and did you see it in theater?
Yes, I remember both Empire and Jedi in the theater. I think they must have had a re-release, but I remember both of those. Not Star Wars that I remember, but yeah, it was immediately impactful, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah? So your immediate reaction to Return of the Jedi?
There was nothing else like it. And I think I just immediately... I was so young that you just absorb the myth of the storytelling. The music was just so impactful. Nothing beats John Williams. The visual aesthetics. And I love so much that it was so otherworldly, but I loved the natural beauty. Like, Endor was gorgeous. I grew up in Colorado, so around a lot of desert. So just that playfulness that came from, and I immediately had toys. I never had to wait.
Oh, okay.
So the kind of toys that I kind of was able to play with and just kind of relive all of those moments. I had a lot of friends who felt the same way. So yeah, just that kind of unstructured play that came along with Star Wars was so magical.
So at 5 years old, you saw Return of the Jedi, but you already had Star Wars toys?
Oh, yeah. I remember, Christmas, that young. Yeah, my parents, I remember having the Darth Vader display case. They would just kind of open up all the figures, put them in the display case. It would be under the tree. So I had kind of Instant Army, that sort of thing. It was just a glut of, as you know, everything that was coming out, coloring books. You just absorb everything you can.
Wow.
All the kids at school would be talking about it, and so it was just, instantly in my brain.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, what a different perspective. That you're already aware of Star Wars and have the Star Wars toys before seeing your first movie. Yeah,
it's just, they just went hand in hand.
That's amazing.
Easily, yeah.
Well,
and then, of course, it's kind of at that tail end of the production of the toys. So it was almost like I collected backwards, too. It was just like a wealth of toys from '83, and I had friends with older brothers who already had the Star Wars and Empire toys, so I would always try to find them on, return cards, but it was harder and harder to find the original toys at that age, so until you kind of maybe shopped for secondhand toys.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I don't remember ever collecting Power of the Force. It was really just kind of that Jedi kind of line.
So in that time when you were collecting, during Return of the Jedi, and it was all, the card backs say Return of the Jedi, you found it difficult to find, like, the Luke and the Han Solo from Star Wars? Yeah,
I remember I really wanted, like, 2-1B. And I think I traded a few to some of my friend John had an older brother named Jeff. But I remember if there were doubles of relatively harder to find figures I really, really wanted as I started exploring the earlier movies. It was more of a backwards collecting.
Wow, that is so neat.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very different from my experience, for sure.
Absolutely.
So what is the first Star Wars item that you got?
Great question. I think I still remember. I think it was Darth Vader and Luke Jedi together, and it was at a supermarket. I was shopping with my mom, and I was able to find both at the same time.
Oh,
And I think I remember my first five figures, but it was definitely Luke and Vader, and that was the holy grail for me at the time. That was
wow.
just because they were the stars of the movie. But yeah, then it was Biker Scout, and I think I had a Weequay and Lando in the disguise.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Starting from Return of the Jedi.
yeah,
That's so amazing.
everything was backwards order.
Yeah, crazy. Being that you're aware of Star Wars back in 1983, and you were collecting, and you saw Return of the Jedi, and you're aware of the way Star Wars was promoted back then, with some of the really quirky things that we see back then, and how Star Wars is promoted now. How do you feel about the differences in the way they're promoted?
I think it's interesting when how far in advance things are announced, and so
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
almost like so the production schedule, the show itself may even be completely canceled. So they're saying, oh, we're gonna do this show, and then they maybe announce it too early. They don't even bring it into production. It's not really a greenlit show.
Yeah.
So the the space in which they're starting to announce and then revise what they previously announced is interesting, and I think that can kind of make people feel it's a little discombobulating.
Yeah.
Maybe is the word where you wait so long for that content to come out, and I think even with TV shows, we've talked about how there used to be seasons of 20 some episodes, and it was kind of a longer duration, and now we get that punch of maybe like 8 that are released all at once, and so the cycle with which everybody's talking about it is so much more condensed because somebody may be reviewing all 8, and you've got to kind of understand that story, and the marketing that comes along with that is kind of a different cadence.
Yeah.
So there's certainly that. For the products for marketing, it's interesting because I remember it was so much food-based things.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of toiletry, soaps, and shampoos.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's like things that you utilize.
Yeah.
And I tend not to. I think most of my collectibles now are just kind of display items, so I may not go out and stock up on like eat a bag of the Oreos and then save a bag for posterity quite as much. Like I love all the Procter and Gamble things from the 80s and that sort of thing, but I'm not future minded about the products as much that are coming out.
Oh.
So what are your thoughts on that change?
I enjoy how everything was promoted back in the day, back in the 80s and 70s and 80s, because it seemed to be a more innocent time of they were still trying to figure out Star Wars and the Star Wars fandom, and not a lot of people knew about Star Wars and these characters, and so they were promoted in such a way as you didn't really know them, so the wordings would be interesting. And one example that I made was looking through his room was this clock. So you can see it. This clock right here with C-3PO and R2-D2. And on the box, it would say your favorite characters, C-3PO and R2-D2, the robots.
The robot.
And that's what I loved about products back then, is we were so innocent in that we didn't know much about this. And so we would have these very quirky, interesting wordings about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And sometimes the art would be very fascinating, very different. I'm going to put this up here like this. Just very different art promoting Star Wars, and which we don't really get much of this these days. It's mostly just Photoshop.
A literal
represent photographs of the characters, and then just Photoshop, even on the movie posters. And that's what I loved about back then, the way Star Wars was promoted.
Yeah.
It was either done through art like this, or just through not really knowing much about the material and basically over-explaining things. It was just a lot more innocence and fun at the time. And now it seems a bit more commercial and corporate and structured.
Yeah, that's such an insightful perspective on that, because it's you look at those things and some of it is the product of the time, but it is, like you say, it's almost like the breadth of licensing and the different artists, and I know you have a love for the posters and even character reveals where they were very careful now you may get a glut of products about a character before the actual show or TV comes out, where, like you were saying, some of the early Empire posters, they were very careful to not have Yoda, not have Lando, not have Boba.
Right.
And so it's interesting that is a calculated product and a culture change for then versus now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How do you feel about reproductions of figures in the market, like Stan Solo and Pro Customs?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I really respect the people who are trying to keep a historically distinct collection free of, just in terms of kind of protecting that legacy of historically situating something with what it was. But I think it's great, and I think a lot of the fan-made collectibles, they're very careful for stamping exactly what they are. I think it gets harder probably with the weapons, that sort of thing. So yeah, personally for me, as I'm collecting now, a lot of it is centered on maybe childhood wish fulfillment or what I might have wanted when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it's been so lovely to see, the Rebel Fleet Trooper and the Sand Trooper, the things that we might not have had.
Yeah.
But as you say, repro, if it's something that's coming out that's already been made, it gets a little more difficult. But fortunately, it seems like everybody's being really careful with kind of stamping that it is a reproduction, and I think a lot of collectors are pretty savvy.
Would you consider Hasbro on the retro collection re-releasing, the figures? Would you consider that reproduction? If if Stan Solo's, they produced some figures that were already made by Kenner,
right?
And so Hasbro's doing the same thing. Stan Solo has been, they've come down, anti-repro people have come down on Stan Solo because they're saying it's reproduction, you're flooding the market with this and lowering the prices. Do you feel it's the same, like it's equal, like Hasbro's doing the same thing?
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's that semantic level of, if it's the company who purchased Kenner, they're the official licensee and they're just continuing that, it's an interesting case.
Yeah.
So yeah, personally, I just kind of pick and choose what I like, and I try to keep it distinct, and I try to kind of even letting my spouse know, these things are the original, and trying to document that well in case, God forbid something happens and, she needs to sell those things, that it's kind of identifiable.
Yeah.
But personally, I think I just love seeing anything that comes out. I appreciate it, and
me too.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the figures, it's easily identifiable, right? Because they put the stamp on it. So how do you feel about weapons? Because there's been a lot of reproductions of weapons, but those aren't easily identifiable. I mean, and that's flooding the market.
Absolutely.
And I know people are just, confused, and they don't know what they're getting. So how do you feel about all of those reproduction weapons going out there?
Yeah, that's a really tough call, I think. Hopefully there are lots of tips and tricks about how to tell. I've heard of things like float tests.
Yeah.
And I think they're, maybe just kind of close inspection and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Personally, my knowledge I'm not savvy enough. I'm sure I might have been fooled many, many times. I think something is original, and, that might be a little bit sad, but I think a lot of collectors hopefully are very, very good at identifying and preserving and keeping that distinct, so that
I hope so.
Future generations can understand this is what it was like to live in 1977, and it's kind of those collectibles are there and siloed.
Yeah, as I looked at your collection, phenomenal collection, is that it seems to be mostly focused on the original trilogy.
Right.
Do you own anything that is from prequel or sequel? You do?
Yeah. I've been focused a lot on Black Series lately, and when I'm watching other shows, I might have a few figures that I'll put on the coffee table as I'm watching the show. From different properties, and if it's kind of an aesthetically pleasing character, I try to have a little bit from every show and movie that's released.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so there's always something valuable to appreciate. A lot of great characterization.
All right, so now questions about the movies. So you started with Return of the Jedi. So, and you've seen all of the movies, the prequels, the sequels. the side, like Solo, Rogue One, all of those.
I think I have, yes.
So what would be, you consider, your most favorite Star Wars movie?
Good question. Well, if I had to choose, I would say Empire.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd like to think of Star Wars Empire Jedi as maybe 3 acts and
okay.
coherent play. So I like to give that answer if it's not too much of a cheat to say they're all just kind of inseparable from each other. Those first 3 movies, definitely my favorite.
I like that.
There's nothing like Luke's hero journey,
right?
That kind of development, seeing that come along.
Now, the other side. What would be your least favorite Star Wars movie?
Good question. Well, my feeling is I try to focus on the positive, and I love that there's such a great fandom around everything that's being released, and I love all of the world building and the lore that's being developed. I struggled with the sequels, and I think most of that is probably I wish there was a little bit of coherent vision across the 3 sequels together, and so it was a little uneven in that way. So across those 3 sequel movies, it's hard to choose the one. Maybe Rise of Skywalker, that should be the conclusion of the Skywalker trip. The 9 movies, and it's kind of hard to see that fall flat a little bit.
Yeah.
That being said, I think they're doing a pretty good job of supplementing the material. So as we know, there's a lot of there are several decades after Jedi up to the sequels. What is it, 30 years? Something
like that, yeah.
In that space. So I think they're working on a lot of connective tissue to supplement our understanding of what's happened with Luke's Jedi Academy and how Kylo might have become so warped and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's a little jarring when you're just getting this characterization of Luke presented to you after having decades of headcanon about what he did, the heroics.
That's true.
And so I like that they're starting to develop. I think they might give us a little more context that I'm hoping in the future I'll appreciate those movies a lot more.
Yeah, I hope so too. How do you feel about the Star Wars shows on Disney Plus?
I think they're great. Yeah, I love all of the different time spans and age groups that they may focus. Some of them are a lot darker. Some of them are more comedic and lighthearted. I've had a lot of fun as everything is coming out.
You enjoyed all of them pretty much?
I think so, yeah. I try to find some positivity. It just takes so many wonderful people to create a show.
Yeah.
And so I think, there are lots of different visions that it may not be, what I would constitute as my favorite show ever, but there's always something rewarding and good storytelling. It's Star Wars, and you try to. Yeah. All right. What about for you?
Well, I haven't really enjoyed a lot of them.
Okay.
But this is about you.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I guess I have a purist vision of Star Wars,
Fair.
And I have from the original trilogy and how it's all about adventure and space fantasy and flight and all that.
Yeah.
And some of those TV shows, I kind of bring it down and ground it too much in reality, and I have issues with that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you answer it in that way because so we can maybe like an example. The Acolyte has a lot of strengths in its own way. What I would ideally like to see is we're told about the Jedi and how they're defenders of peace and justice, and a lot of the Machiavellian machinations, and it's like what we're seeing is kind of the end of the Republic, the end of the high, the acts of the Jedi, and it's kind of that, it's wrapping up kind of what they had been. So I would love in the future to see a show where it's just kind of, I know we've talked about even, like Star Trek Next Generation, where it's kind of a planet of the week, you have an arc, you go and to see Jedi help others, and, just kind of, I would love to see that fleshed out.
Yeah.
So I think where there are weaknesses in some of the newer shows, hopefully that becomes supplemented so that we do see the Jedi as a source of goodness.
Yeah.
And we do see high adventure and not so much the political intrigue all the time.
Yeah. Or the Where they working at the 9 to 5 job and sitting at the front of the computer doing this
Right.
thing. It's like, come on.
Yeah, so like you say, a swashbuckling high
Yeah,
adventure,
yeah.
keep it going.
Yeah. Would you like to see a series based on the original characters that takes place after Return of the Jedi?
Oh, based on the original characters.
Yeah, Luke, Leia, Han.
Interesting. Cast by other people.
Yeah.
Obviously
Yeah.
not an AI.
I don't want to see AI.
de-aged.
No, none
Right.
of that. None of that.
Yeah, so these are
I'm okay with them recasting.
Yeah, I would give it a try. Like you say, that delicate balance of being a purist.
Yeah.
And so if the gold standard is the original trilogy, hopefully I could compartmentalize and just kind of appreciate if they are kind of capturing the spirit of those characters.
Yeah.
And, if it's not retconning to undo what they did in the original trilogy, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's, there are so many newer generations that are coming in, and if it brings people into that fold of loving Star Wars and they just love Luke and Leia and Han all the more, and it's strongly written.
Yeah. I hope so. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Would you accept adaptations of the original Marvel comics?
Oh, that would that's a lot of different wonkiness, huh?
Yeah.
But so many interesting stories there. Yeah, I think zany can be good if it's done well. I think we got just like the focus on the pirates and skeleton crew is just kind of like, you have a wolf man who's a pirate, like, a lot of those Marvel characters were truly strange.
Yeah.
If they can pull it off, more power to them.
Yeah, I agree. That would be fun. Do you have a favorite of Star Wars series?
Of the newer series, a favorite. That's a good question. Mandalorian has been strong and popular, and I think especially with the movie forthcoming, they really want that Mandoverse to be fleshed out. So it's intriguing. Sometimes you get just kind of in a different headspace where it's nice to have the fun parts of Acolyte going 100 years before, and you're venturing into a kind of a new timeline that you may not know as much. But each of them have their own qualities. It's so interesting to see what might be happening right after Return of the Jedi. And I thought they did a pretty good job with Kenobi. I think whether or not it was needed, probably not. It's kind of like nothing. The setup and payoff, it wasn't a necessary story, but I think Ewan McGregor is a fantastic early Obi-Wan, and I think seeing that kind of just a few years after like a very young Luke and Leia was interesting, and it was cast really well. But little strengths in all of the shows. Yeah.
So you don't want to name one that you preferred above all?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's almost like if I say Mandalorian, it's almost like you need Book of Boba Fett, you need Ahsoka. They're kind of like taking place in that same space.
Okay.
So it's almost like that Mandoverse is very interesting. I think that kind of return of Thrawn that's happening in Ahsoka. So it's like some of the story arcs are more interesting. I think maybe Book of Boba Fett as a whole fell a little more flat. I think it was fewer episodes. But there were some very strong developments that were happening in the show that were pertinent to Mandalorian. And you kind of need to know them to understand. Rebels is a fantastic show, and you kind of need that grounding to understand Ahsoka. So kind of the blending of that whole cinematic space. But it's been a lot of fun to see that kind of like 5 years after Jedi. And so that's where I'm hoping they'll really develop. If we go 30 years, it's like they gave us Resistance, it's kind of taking place. So a lot of the world building way after is interesting too.
All right. Do you have a favorite Star Wars character?
Oh, good question. I would have to go with Luke. I think to me, I think the representation of seeing myself in Luke, I was very fortunate to be a young kid, and Leia as well, but something about Luke's hero journey, and I think it was so important how my early experience of Luke gave me so many other interests in what that hero journey looks like, and having an interest in Joseph Campbell and Akira Kurosawa, and seeing all of Lucas's influences and how he poured all of that into the character of Luke and his Bildungsroman, that coming of age. I think there's just nothing quite like that has ever affected me so strongly.
Very nice. I think I know the answer to this question based on your response to your favorite character. But light side or dark side?
Light side.
I kind of figured that would be the answer.
If I have a bad day. But in terms of the moral compass, like you say, the goodness that you get from absorbing Star Wars and trying to implement that as, walking through life, being a better person, those things, you have to cleave to the light side and the lessons of Yoda and Obi-Wan.
So the last question I have, what does being part of the Star Wars community and Star Wars community collecting, what does that mean to you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, there are just so many genuinely great people who love Star Wars, and I think, this is obviously how I absolutely love your channel and all of the creative content you put into it, and that love for Star Wars really comes through. There are so many great podcasts and channels, and I think I love the technology that's allowed us to be less regional. We can just, now there are global celebrations. People just got back from Japan, and I'm sure meeting people from all over the world, and that kind of sense of community is fantastic. And I love that there are so many newer generations. We're kind of the relatively older fans, and seeing people's takes on what it means to them, and the culture is much larger and broader than what we had as kids. And I think developing better representation, I think it's all just really crucial for getting a really solid fan base. I know, there are lots of toxic elements in every culture, fandom, but I think it's just there are so many positive people. And
all right. Thank you for taking your time to sit down and chat with me and answer these questions about Star Wars and Star Wars fandom. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure.
And thank you for letting me check out your collection room. It's gorgeous. If you haven't seen the room tour, I will leave a link in the description below to the video, and also it'll be at the end of this video. So, once again, thank you so much, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and click subscribe. You can follow Star Wars Obsessed on Blue Sky. Thank you for watching Star Wars Obsessed. Bye.